Sarah was 24 years old. She lived in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio. She worked as a dental hygienist. Everyone who met her said the same thing: she was polite, funny, and deeply loyal. She had recently married a man named Ryan Widmer. To the outside world, they were a picture-perfect couple. Sarah's Facebook was full of smiles, wedding photos, beach vacations, wine nights with friends. But beneath the surface, there was something else. A gnawing discomfort. A silent voice she never quite listened to. And that silence would cost her everything. In the beginning, things were good. Ryan was charming. A little shy. He worked in sports marketing, and the two had met through mutual friends. Their romance was fast, but fairy tale fast. Or so it seemed. At their engagement party, one of Sarah's closest friends pulled her aside and said, "You sure this is what you want?" Sarah smiled. Said, "Ryan just gets me." But after the wedding, the tone began to shift. Ryan started getting frustrated over little things. The way she folded laundry. How late she came home from work. Who she texted. Sarah dismissed it. "He's just adjusting to married life," she told her mother. But then came the nights. Nights where Sarah said Ryan would barely speak to her. Or worse, nights where he wouldn't let her sleep. One night, according to her private journal, she wrote, "He stood in the doorway and stared at me. Didn't say anything. Just stood there." Then another line, "Sometimes I wonder if I made a mistake." Sarah had always journaled. But now, her writing changed. It wasn't poetry or memories. It was record keeping. On July 17th, just weeks before her death, she wrote, "Ryan yelled at me over nothing. Something in his eyes scared me. A week later, I don't feel safe when he's angry." And the most haunting entry of all: "If anything happens to me, look at him." These words were never shared with anyone while she was alive. But one day, they'd be read aloud in court. Sarah's mother noticed her daughter seemed tense. She'd come home to visit, and her energy felt dimmer, her mom later said. "I asked her if everything was okay. She said, 'Yeah, just tired.'" But her best friend, Emily, wasn't convinced. She once called me late and said Ryan grabbed her wrist. Hard. I told her that wasn't normal. But Sarah, she was so good at minimizing things. She'd say, "He's just stressed. It's not a big deal." But behind those words was a woman who had started sleeping with the light on. Control doesn't always show up in bruises. Sometimes it shows up in checking your phone. Asking where you've been. Telling you who your real friends are. Ryan began to isolate Sarah. He told her she was too emotional. Said her friends didn't understand marriage. He started deciding what they'd eat, where they'd go, and even who they'd invite over. She lost weight. Slept less. Smiled less. And yet, she never left. Why? Because Sarah, like so many, believed it would get better. She believed he'd change. But deep down, her journal reveals, she was preparing for something she didn't know how to stop. August 10th. Sarah visited her mom and said she wasn't feeling well. That she'd been getting headaches. That Ryan was a little on edge lately. Her mother offered to let her stay the night. Sarah declined. The next day, she was dead. Ryan claimed she had drowned in the bathtub. That she must have fallen asleep. August 11th, 2008. It was supposed to be an ordinary Monday night. Sarah Widmer took a bath. Her husband said she was tired. That she fell asleep. Minutes later, she was dead. But when first responders arrived, they found something strange. Something off. And from that moment forward, nothing added up. This is the night Sarah Widmer died. And it's when her story began to scream for justice. At 10:49 p.m., Ryan Widmer made the call. "My wife fell asleep in the bathtub and I think she's dead." The dispatcher asked if she was breathing. Ryan said, "No." She asked if she was cold. Ryan replied, "Yeah, kind of." The call was odd. Not panicked. Not rushed. It was almost rehearsed. He didn't say he tried CPR. He didn't say how long she was in the tub. Just that she fell asleep and now, she was gone. When emergency services arrived, they rushed upstairs. Sarah's body was lying on the bedroom floor. Naked. Wet. Lifeless. But the bathroom, where she'd supposedly drowned, was dry. The towels were dry. The floor was dry. The tub itself? Barely damp. One EMT later said, it looked like no one had taken a bath in there at all. Even stranger, Sarah's hair, thick, shoulder length, was still mostly dry. She had a bruise on the back of her neck. And a faint red mark across her cheek. But no signs of CPR. The coroner's report was chilling. Sarah's cause of death, drowning. But not the type typically seen in accidents. There were signs of struggle. Hemorrhaging in the neck. Broken capillaries in the eyes. A bruised lip. Her body showed signs of being forcibly held underwater. The coroner noted, the physical evidence suggests this was not an accidental drowning. Still, without a confession or a witness, it was labeled undetermined. But the autopsy wasn't the only thing raising questions. Just hours after Sarah's death, Ryan sat down with police. The detective asked, "What happened tonight?" Ryan said they'd watched a little TV. Sarah had a headache. She went to take a bath. He played video games downstairs. Then, silence. When he came up, she was face down in the tub. He said she must have drowned. That maybe she'd fallen asleep. But his story lacked detail. He couldn't recall what game he was playing. He didn't notice the sound of water running. And he didn't explain why he moved her to the bedroom floor, before calling 911. The detective pressed, "Did you fight?" Ryan shook his head. "No," he said. "We were fine." But fine didn't match what Sarah's friends had seen. In the days that followed, Sarah's family was in shock. But one by one, they started remembering things that didn't sit right. Her mother recalled how Sarah had mentioned Ryan gets angry sometimes. Her friend Emily remembered the night Sarah called, crying. A coworker said Sarah once came in with a red mark on her arm, but brushed it off. All the stories pointed to the same thing. Sarah had been afraid. She hadn't said it directly, but her actions, her journal, her behavior, all told a silent story. Detectives attempted to recreate the scene. They filled the tub. Timed how long it would take for a woman Sarah's size to drown. The average? At least 4 to 5 minutes of submersion. But if Ryan had walked upstairs, found her, and immediately called 911, how could she have already been dead and cold? Even more damning, the forensic pathologist said rigor mortis had begun. Sarah had been dead, for a while. Longer than Ryan's timeline allowed. Investigators studied Ryan's behavior. He didn't cry during interviews. He never asked about funeral arrangements. He made a strange comment to one officer, "This will probably be on the news, right?" And the next morning, he called Sarah's job to say she'd died, like he was canceling a dentist appointment. The emotion was absent. But was that proof of guilt? Or just shock? Detectives presented their case to prosecutors. Between the forensic evidence, the inconsistent timeline, and Sarah's secret journal, they had enough. Ryan Widmer was arrested and charged with murder. The news exploded. Friends were divided. Some said he was innocent, a shy guy wrongly accused. Others said, they always saw something dark behind that smile. As Ryan sat in a holding cell awaiting trial, investigators uncovered one more piece of evidence. A hidden note Sarah had left in her phone's notepad. It read, "I don't know if I'll ever be able to leave. But I'm scared." She never sent it. She never told anyone. But now, her voice was louder than ever. 3 months after Sarah Widmer's death, police were ready to close the case. Ryan said it was an accident. The autopsy was inconclusive. But then, a box arrived at the police department. No return address. Inside? A battered phone. Sarah's phone. The one investigators had never recovered. It was water-damaged, but not beyond repair. And on it, buried in corrupted files, was a voicemail. Timestamped 2:03 a.m., the night she died. The message? Just 13 words. But it changed the investigation forever. The voicemail was shaky. Crackled. Distorted. But it was her. Sarah's voice. I'm scared. He's angry. If I die tonight, don't believe him. Silence. A gasp. Then the line went dead. Detectives replayed it 12 times. Each time it hit harder. They sent the file to forensic audio specialists, who confirmed the timestamp was authentic. No tampering. Sarah had called her own voicemail to leave the message, at the exact time she was supposed to be unconscious in a bathtub. Why? Because she knew. But how did the voicemail survive? It turned out Sarah had recently changed her mobile plan to include cloud backup, a feature only activated by accident. And that one accident may have spoken louder than any witness. Investigators traced the call to a nearby cell tower. The signal showed she was inside her home. But not in the bathroom. In the living room. Standing. Breathing. Begging. Ryan, meanwhile, had told police they were in bed until she went to take a bath alone. A timeline was falling apart. Detectives interviewed Emily, Sarah's best friend, again. This time, they played her the voicemail. She sobbed uncontrollably. Then revealed something she hadn't before. Sarah called me at 1:45 a.m., she said he was yelling. That she was hiding in the laundry room. Why hadn't she told anyone? Because I thought, maybe I imagined it. Maybe I was dreaming. She wasn't. And now they had proof. Sarah had reached out, in real time. Her final act wasn't drowning. It was documenting her fear. As investigators dug deeper, they found more: Sarah's old laptop. It was password protected. Encrypted. But Sarah had left clues in her journal. A favorite quote. A childhood nickname. A date circled in red. 3 tries later, they were in. What they found was heartbreaking. Over 200 pages of private writings. Entries like, "He checks my emails. I think he deleted one. I'm starting to sleep with a knife under my pillow. If anything ever happens to me, tell them to look at the bathroom floor." Chills ran down every spine in the room. She wasn't paranoid. She was documenting her own murder. In a final twist, police recovered a set of VHS tapes from Sarah's mother's attic, old home movies. On one, recorded just weeks before her death, Sarah sat alone in a sunlit room. She faced the camera. "I just want people to know I was here. That I mattered." No mention of Ryan. No fear in her voice. Just sorrow. Like she was already saying goodbye. With the voicemail, the laptop, and new witness corroboration, the case exploded back into the headlines. News anchors ran the voicemail on air. Podcasts dissected every word of her journal. Detectives issued a warrant for Ryan's arrest. This time, he didn't cry. He just whispered, "I knew this would happen." He was charged with second-degree murder. And the trial date was set. But Sarah wasn't done yet. The courtroom was packed. Local reporters, national media, friends, family, all present. The prosecution began. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a case of an accident. This is a case of control, fear, and a woman whose final moments were stolen." They detailed the timeline, the forensic inconsistencies, the bruises. And most of all, Sarah's own words. When the defense stood, they were calm. Not every tragedy is a crime. Accidents happen, even terrible ones. They warned the jury about emotion. urged them to stick to the facts. It was a classic battle, logic versus instinct. And Sarah was the center of it all. Day 3. The prosecution called Dr. Ellen Stokes, the forensic pathologist. She pointed to autopsy photos. Bruising on the back of the neck. Hemorrhages in the eyes. No fluid in the lungs, a sign, she said, that Sarah may have been killed before being submerged. The injuries, she testified, are inconsistent with an accidental drowning. Another expert, a crime scene reconstructionist, testified the tub showed no watermarks. The bathroom was implausibly dry. Too clean, he said. Too undisturbed. It was as if Sarah had never bathed at all. Then came the moment that silenced the room. The prosecution introduced Sarah's journal. An officer read excerpts aloud. He gets so angry. And I never know what I did. Sometimes I sleep in my car just to feel safe. If something happens to me, don't let them say it was an accident. The courtroom sat frozen. Jurors scribbled notes. One wiped a tear. Sarah's voice had entered the room. But the defense fought hard. They said Sarah was prone to anxiety. They brought in a psychiatrist who claimed her writing style mirrored catastrophizing behavior common in generalized anxiety disorder. They pointed out inconsistencies in her friend's memories. Is it possible, the lawyer asked, that grief has shaped your memory? They showed wedding photos. Videos of Sarah and Ryan laughing. They asked, is this a murderer? Then they called Ryan to the stand. Ryan's voice was soft. Nervous. Almost trembling. He said they were happy. He said Sarah often took long baths when she had migraines. She must have fallen asleep. I don't know. The prosecutor pushed. Why didn't you perform CPR? I panicked. Why was the bathroom dry? I grabbed towels, maybe I cleaned without realizing. Why did Sarah write that she was scared of you? Ryan looked at the floor. She got emotional sometimes. I never heard her. But jurors noticed something. He never said, I loved her. Not once. Then, the voicemail. Sarah's trembling voice echoed in the courtroom. Hey. I just need to talk. I'm scared. I think I need out. Her friend Emily wept silently in the gallery. One juror closed their eyes and exhaled. The prosecutor paused. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah told us. In the only way she could. Just when the case seemed to be tilting, a twist emerged. A neighbor came forward with a new video clip, one never shown before. It showed Ryan, hours before the 911 call, carrying a large laundry basket to the garage. Inside the basket? A towel. A robe. Something heavy underneath. The defense objected. Too late. Inadmissible. The judge allowed it, for context only. But the jury saw it. And they remembered, the towel Sarah was wrapped in was never tested. Never found. What was Ryan hiding? The prosecution stood for the final time. They outlined the timeline. The contradictions. The forensic impossibilities. Then, she asked us to listen. In her journal. Her voicemail. Her email. And now, in this courtroom. You don't need to see the murder. Because she told us she saw it coming. The defense followed. This is not a whodunit. It's a why are we here? Because of fear? Of grief? Of suspicion? That's not guilt. That's tragedy. 12 jurors left the courtroom. And Sarah's voice followed them. 3 days passed. Whispers filled the hallway. Would they convict without a weapon? Without a witness? Finally, the jury returned. Have you reached a verdict? We have. On the charge of murder. Guilty. Gasps. Silence. A sob. Ryan sat motionless. Sarah's mother clutched her hands and whispered, she did it. She told them. The town of Mason, Ohio didn't celebrate. It recoiled. Neighbors who once waved at Ryan now whispered his name like a curse. Others claimed he was innocent. "I just don't believe he could do it," said one neighbor. They were always smiling. The Widmer family was divided. Ryan's parents insisted he was framed. Sarah's mother, Lorraine, clung to the memory of her daughter's diary. She told us. We didn't listen. But the jury did. Ryan Widmer was sentenced to 15 years to life. Inmates called him the bathtub killer. He kept to himself. Rarely spoke. His appeal lawyer, Tricia Kellerman, took on the case for free. "I think there are problems with the timeline," she said. "And the way the evidence was handled." She filed motions. Called press conferences. Pointed to the missing towel. The dry tub. The deleted crime scene photos. Outside the courthouse, protesters gathered with signs. "Free Ryan. Justice, not just verdicts." Inside, Sarah's family suffered. Her brother, Mark, developed PTSD. Her best friend, Emily, stopped using bathtubs altogether. The verdict had not brought peace. Only more questions. 2 years later, an unexpected twist. A retired detective named Carl Jensen stepped forward. He had been asked to review old files for a training seminar. And in a dusty evidence box, he found it. A handwritten note. Folded. Yellowed. Nearly lost. It was from Sarah. "Dear whoever reads this. If something ever happens to me, please ask them about that night in 2006. In the cabin." "What cabin?" She never told anyone. Jensen handed it over to prosecutors, but the note was never submitted during trial. Why? A clerical error? Or something else? Investigators tracked it down, a remote rental in Indiana. Sarah and Ryan had stayed there with friends in 2006, just after their engagement. According to guestbook records, a 911 call had been placed that night. No arrest was made. No report filed. But a neighbor remembered. She ran out barefoot. Crying. Said he tried to lock her in the bathroom. Was this the night Sarah feared most? Was it the start of something darker? The story was unraveling in reverse. In 2025, after 13 years in prison, Ryan gave his first interview from behind bars. His hair grayer. His tone resigned. "I didn't kill her," he said. "But I didn't protect her either." He talked about fights. Her anxiety. His silence. "I made her feel alone. I'll never forgive myself for that." He paused. "But I didn't drown her." The interviewer asked, "Why do you think the jury convicted you?" Ryan answered quietly. "Because she was braver than I ever was." Even years later, the town is torn. True crime podcasts revisit the case. Documentaries highlight the gaps. Reddit threads argue day and night, was it justice, or just a story we wanted to believe? One juror came forward anonymously. "I still wonder," they said. "Not because I think he's innocent, but because she deserved certainty." Sarah's journal is now studied in domestic abuse advocacy courses. Her story is shared with young women at shelters. A scholarship was created in her name, awarded to women studying criminal justice. Her mother visits the grave every Sunday. "She never stopped trying," Lorraine says. "Even after death, she was louder than all of us." No other suspects were ever named. No new evidence was strong enough to overturn the verdict. But her case changed laws. Ohio now requires full video documentation of crime scenes. Domestic violence response units received expanded funding. Because of Sarah. Because she refused to go quietly. Is Ryan truly guilty? Please share your opinion in the comment section. If Sarah's story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel.